At a judicial conference this weekend, Clarence Thomas, of all people, was complaining about the culture of DC, saying that it's mean and the people there are big old meanies. He was asked about working in DC, considering the way our politics goes. And he says, I think there's challenges to that. We're in a world, and certainly my wife and I, the last 2 or 3 years, it's been just the nastiness and the lies. It's just incredible. Now, I do agree that his wife has been involved in some nastiness and lies about the election. That's true. I don't think that's what he means there. He says, but you have some choices. You don't get to prevent people from doing horrible things or saying horrible things. But one, you have to understand and accept the fact is that they can't change you unless you permit that. And that is true. We can criticize all of the millions of dollars of gifts that he has gotten from people that desperately need his support on the Supreme Court. And we can point out how utterly corrupt that is. And we can't force him to step down. And so he just won't. He will just continue to be corrupt. So he's living his advice. Finally, he says they don't bomb you necessarily. Necessarily, they don't bomb you literally at all. Why are you putting qualifiers? But they can bomb your reputation or your good name or your honor. And that's not a crime, but they can do as much harm that way. Hey, I'm glad you're here. Listen, in order for the damage report to keep on going, we need viewers like you to become a member on YouTube. Can you click the join button on YouTube today? Thank you. He should be so thrilled that he has gotten away with all of what in any other country would be seen as utterly unacceptable bribery.
Yep.
That he should just take the win, but he's not happy. He has to go out and whine about the fact that we found out about the fact that he was taking millions of dollars in bribes. And the fact that that has ruined his good name. What good name, man? I got news for you. You didn't have a good name before the bribery stuff. You got onto the court amidst horrendous scandal. And it's so brazen. What do you think?
I just think it's incredible that we always call third world countries or the global south countries corrupt, and their judicial systems are corrupt and they have bribery and all this. And yet our 9 justices are so full of billionaires caviar from their fishing trips and just merch. They're just, I don't know, they are so corrupt. And yet you'll have mainstream news outlets and New York Times reading elites, just sort of pretending that somehow this is still an incredible democracy. No, and I think we need to point this out. It doesn't mean we implode it. I mean, maybe we remake it from the ground up. I'm not against that. But just if you want, look no further than the Supreme Court, and then you see young folks on the streets angry about genocide, angry about the complicity of this government. And then you're like, yeah, who are they? Who's anyone looking up to? These are some of the most prestigious jobs in the world, right? These are the people who we should revere. These are the people who are they're supposed to be nonpartisan, and they're bought and sold by the billionaire class. And they need MAGA, and they need xenophobia, and they need racism, and they need weird QAnon conspiracies, the likes of which Ginny Thomas is part of and interested in order to distract the masses from actually realizing it is the 1% versus the 99%. And we have to do that convincing. I'm not saying we reach out and hold the hand of Steve Bannon's little, sort of pockmark, but we need to wake people up to the fact that we are run by corrupt elites, and it's us versus them, and that's it.
We try, we try to make the connection, Charlie Kirk and Matt Walsh exist to distract from Clarence Thomas. That's why they exist. That's why they are funded. Libs of TikTok exists to defend this. And it's not an end of its own. They want Clarence Thomas because Clarence Thomas will give to the other millionaires and billionaires everything that they want. That's why they care about this. I'm gonna close with a reminder. We're not gonna go through all the corruption scandals and everything. So he has that massive motor coach or whatever, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Most of the loans were forgiven on it, which means he was just given it basically. How many of your salaries, years of your salary, was he just given in this coach? And it's a dear friend, so he doesn't even think he should have to disclose it. It's just bribery. That's literally, if you saw this happen, you talked about like the global South or whatever. If you heard that this was happening in Kenya or something, how would Republicans describe this? Well, they'd probably drop some words we wouldn't want to say, but at the very least, corruption. That's all it would be. And they would not care that that judge, had a dear friend who worked in energy and wanted to give them a motor coach. That would be irrelevant because it is irrelevant. It's bribery either way.
And the last thing I'm gonna say is if and when, and man, I hope in our lifetime we truly have some serious court reform in this country. Expanding the Supreme Court would be a start. Obviously making it illegal to accept any of these gifts. Maybe term limits, I don't know. But watch, if we ever have those plans, and in a lot of, again, global South countries where there is more of a socialist president that wants to do judicial reform, it's always reported on as if this is the most extreme thing. How could they do it? It compromising the judiciary. It's like, well, what's the judiciary been compromised up until this point? Like unfettered money. So if and when we get an AOC into the White House at some point, you know what I'm saying? Watch how the media will be like, she's doing radical things by, expanding the court. Isn't that a little extreme? Isn't it a little extreme that a hedge fund billionaire is just taking our Supreme Court justices fly fishing? Isn't that extreme? And then, they have cases before the very Supreme Court. Isn't that extreme?
Well, thankfully they would never be biased because they're angelic beings. And this is why I was so frustrated. Like the people who buy into right-wing framing of things as if the right would ever operate in good faith.
Right.
The people in the early years of Donald Trump were like, well, he does have a good point about the deep state. He does want to stop that. There are billionaires giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to Supreme Court justices. And Donald Trump and right-wing media are doing everything they can to make sure that that literally never stops and in fact accelerates. Spare me the concern about the deep state.
Trump just told the oil and gas industry, buy me out for $1 billion.
Yeah, give me $1 billion and you can rape the natural world.
Yeah.
But he's very worried about the deep state. And he's critical of the elites, and so is Tucker Carlson, because he once said the word elite on his show. So I don't have to like everything about him, but maybe we could be allies.
John, if you fill the swamp with toxic sludge, that actually is like draining it, because there's just so much sludge that the rest
swamp
of the
left
swamp,
if it's all oil.
There's no swamp left.
That makes
Absolutely.
Sense. Okay. I think that we can work together. When you click the join button and become a tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?